What's happening? It's Ratzi here, back in the Ratcave for DJKit, and in today's video I am going to be comparing head to head the Pioneer DJ DDJ Rev1 and the classic Pioneer DJ DDJ-400. So if you want to be a DJ and you're interested in Pioneer DJ equipment, these two are the controllers that you will be looking at. Both of these are entry-level controllers from Pioneer DJ, and they both come in at the same price of £259. That is at least at the time that I filmed this video. And they do both share a lot of the same features, but actually when you break it down like I'm about to, you do realise that they are quite different at the same time. So let's get into it. Alright, so up here we've got the Pioneer DJ DDJ Rev1. This is pretty much brand new at the time that I'm filming this video here. It is a Serato DJ controller. Pioneer DJ pushing it that it comes with Serato DJ Lite, but it does of course work with Serato DJ Pro as well. If you pay to upgrade, then you get all of the extra bits like more effects and the ability to record your sets and better use of the performance pads, as the Rev1's beat jump and roll performance pads don't actually work on Serato DJ Lite. So on the flip of that, the Pioneer DJ DDJ-400 here, this has been one of the best selling controllers that we've ever seen. It took a massive boom during the first lockdown, I guess because everyone wanted to learn how to be a DJ to spend their time in the house learning how to mix. And the DDJ-400 was a strong choice for people because the layout of it and stuff emulates the club setup. So the DDJ-400 comes with the full version of Rekordbox. There's no need to pay for any upgrade or pay for any Rekordbox subscription. This is a hardware unlock. So when you download Rekordbox 6 for free, it will ask you if you want to pay for any of the subscriptions. You don't need to do that because when you plug in this DDJ-400, it unlocks performance mode, which is what you need to DJ with. Should say as well that you can also use this DDJ-400 with Algorithm's DJ app, which you can use on your phone. Really, really popular. And also, I mean, at the time of me shooting this, the Rev1 isn't compatible with DJ Pro, but I'm sure that it will be. And Virtual DJ are pretty up on their MIDI mappings as well. And the DDJ-400 does already work with Virtual DJ, and I'm sure that the DDJ Rev1 will work with Virtual DJ in the future. So let's take a look at the size of these two controllers. Now, the Rev1 is actually slightly wider, but the DDJ-400 is actually deeper, but they're pretty much both the same height, like off of the table. So the Rev1 is 526 by 255.5 by 59.2. This is all in millimeters, by the way. And the DDJ-400 is 482 by 272.4 and 58.5 millimeters tall. So yeah, the Rev1 slightly wider. That might be to make room for these bigger jog wheels. So yeah, the Rev1's jog wheel's slightly larger than the DDJ-400, but that is pretty good considering that it's built around a battle mixer and turntable setup, which goes hand in hand with scratching. And obviously, the bigger the jogs, the better for scratching. But that's not to say that you can't scratch on the DDJ-400. And actually, I would just like to say at this point in the video, there's no specific controller for a certain genre of music or anything like that. You can play any music on any controller, being any kind of DJ. It's just, you know, maybe this Rev1's layout would suit a certain DJ more than the DDJ-400 does. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's carry on looking at these bad boys head to head. Now, the jogs on this Rev1 come in at 154 millimeters, and the DDJ-400's jogs are 132 millimeters. And that doesn't sound like much of a difference, but actually on a compact controller of this size, it actually does make quite a big difference. I mean, hopefully you can see that, you know, these Rev1 jog wheels do actually look quite a bit bigger. Also, while we're around this area, you can see that both controllers do have, of course, a play and a pause button, but the DDJ-400s look like what you would find on a CDJ, whereas the Rev1 has a smaller square Q button here, which, I mean, obviously a turntable doesn't have a Q button, but that looks more like a PLX 1000 turntable, which is Pioneer's flagship turntable. Now let's talk about effects. Now both of these controllers are completely software based. There's nothing standalone with these controllers, so that means none of the effects are actually built in. You have to have the Rev1 plugged into Serato to use the Serato effects, and you have to have the DDJ-400 plugged into Rekordbox to use the Rekordbox software effects. However, as I did mention before, you do get a lot more effects with the Rekordbox straight out of the box compared to Serato DJ Lite, so it's definitely worth, if you are going to go for the Rev1, to upgrade to Serato DJ Pro. So when it comes to effects, to be fair, this is where the controllers start to differ. First up, let's look at how you trigger the effects, and when I say trigger, I mean how to turn the effects on and off. So the Rev1 here has got these lever paddles up here to trigger the effects, and you see this on the Pioneer DJM S battle mixer range, and to be fair, you pretty much see paddles like this on all of the battle mixers on the market at the moment. So to turn the effect on, you flick it up, or you can momentarily hold it down like that, whereas on the DDJ-400, to turn the effect on and off, it's this button down here. So this is where you would see the effects button on the club sort of mixer range, like the DJM 900 Nexus 2 mixer. Secondly, about the effects, the DDJ-400 has actually got a dedicated button here where you can change the effects. And you can also change the size of the beat of the effect with these two buttons here. Whereas on the Rev1, it's a shift and a secondary option to change the effect here and to change the beat up here. On the DDJ-400, you select which channel you want the effects with this switch here. So if I want my effect to play on channel 1, I obviously have it on 1. On 2, we'll play on that side, and then master will play on whichever 2 that you have up coming out of the master volume. But on the Rev1, you actually have 3 dedicated effects buttons here. You choose which one you want to play by pressing the button here. So within Serato, you get to choose 3 different effects, and then you get to choose which one. So if I want to play effect number 2, I'll hit that and then hit the paddle, and then that will play the effect on the Rev1. So now then, let's take a look at the mixer sections on these two controllers. As I said before, the DDJ-400 is laid out more like a DJM club style mixer, such as the DJM 900 Nexus 2, with the trim, the EQ, and the filter all in a vertical row down here. Whereas on the Rev1, the EQ is in one vertical line here, and then the trim and the filter is to the side. Again, we see this layout on the DJM battle mixers like the S9 and the S7. The S11 does actually have them all in a vertical line like this, but of course it's got that whopper screen in the middle, so it's a little bit longer. Also, quick one actually about the filter knob here. So on Serato, you can't change this from a filter knob to anything else. It's something which I hope Serato does implement soon. But on the DDJ-400 here, you can actually change this filter knob to any of the Pioneer color effects within the Rekordbox software. Now let's move on to the looping sections. Now, even though both controllers do have the same looping options, they are laid out slightly differently. So on the Rev1, the looping section looks more like you would get again on a battle mixer. You can see a little pattern forming here. So you've got your auto loop here, and then the buttons to times it by 2 or half it, but then you do also have the manual in and out as well, but that is a secondary option. Whereas down here on the DDJ-400, the looping section looks more like the buttons that you would get on a CDJ, concentrating more on like the manual loop in and out rather than the auto loop. And then up here as well, you do actually have the Q loop and the memory Q up here, and of course you have the sync and the sync here, but over here you'll notice there is actually a deck select, because on the DDJ Rev1 you press this button to jump from channel 2 to channel 4 within Serato, and then this button over here to jump from channel 1 to channel 3. So you can play 4 decks within Serato on the Rev1, whereas the DDJ-400 is only a 2-channel, 2-deck controller within Rekordbox. So anyway, whilst we're up here, this is where one of the biggest differences between these two controllers is the placement of the pitch fader. The pitch faders are, by the way, the same size on both of these controllers at 6mm, and they both have the click at the center point, which I am a big fan of. But the Rev1's pitch fader is at the top of the controller here on a horizontal line, as if this was set up like a turntable in battle mode, whereas the DDJ-400's pitch fader is set on a vertical down here, like you would see on a CDJ. To be fair, not only a CDJ, but this is pretty much where we see pitch faders on all DJ controllers. So speaking of battle mode, the same battle mode placement applies when it comes to the performance pads on these two controllers. The DDJ-400 performance pads are down here underneath the jog wheel, which is where we're used to seeing them on other DJ controllers, whereas the Rev1's performance pads are here in the center of the controller in the mixer section, like we see on the battle mixers, not only like the DJM S7 and S11, but this has become the standard placement for performance pads on pretty much all battle mixers on the market. Now, if you want to know more about battle mode and the sort of placement of the pitch fader and these performance pads and stuff on this Rev1, I will drop the links to my Rev1 review and my DDJ Rev7 review in the description of this video, so make sure you check that out. Anyway, let's compare the performance pads real quick. Now, you've got 8 different performance pad modes on both of these controllers, but they are slightly different. On the Rev1 here, you've got hot cue, auto loop, tracking, sampler, and then the secondary options which you get by holding shift are the beat jump, the roll, the trans, and the scratch bank. Just to say, the beat jump and the roll don't work on Serato DJ Lite. You will need Serato DJ Pro to access those performance pad modes. So on to the DDJ-400, you've got hot cue, beat loop, beat jump, sampler, and then the secondary options where you hold shift are keyboard, pad effects 1, pad effects 2, and key shift. Now, I don't want to keep on going on about the limitations of Serato DJ Lite, but it does also restrict quite a lot of the performance pads themselves. So for example, on the DDJ-400 within Rekordbox, you get 8 different hot cue options, whereas on this DDJ Rev1, you only get 4, and the bottom 4 pads here do something completely different. They like reverse the tune, skip it forward, change the track. It's like transport controls. Whereas when you are using this DDJ Rev1 with Serato DJ Pro, you get to add 8 different hot cues across the 8 pads. Now, the pads themselves are made out of rubber and they feel great to hit. I mean, they're not like plastic buttons that click too bad or anything like that. And I'm pretty sure they are the same on both controllers. Even though now that I've actually said that, the Rev1 performance pads do look slightly smaller. Now, the ins and outs are exactly the same on these two controllers. The headphone input is 3.5mm on both, so that's the little headphone jack. And they both have a single master out, which is RCA, which is the red and white or the red and black cable, which goes out of the controller into your speakers. And also both controllers have one single USB input, which is actually the USB that powers the controller. So when you have this plugged into your laptop or your computer, that's what turns it on, that's what it gets the power from, hence why there isn't a separate sort of power cable to plug it in. There is a 1/4" jack microphone input on both of these controllers with volume on the back, but the difference between the two here is that the Rev1 microphone goes into the master output of the software, whereas the DDJ-400s bypasses the software and goes directly into the master out on the sound card of the controller itself. So what this means is you can use the Rev1 for streaming within Serato and it will pick up your microphone. Whereas if you are doing that on the DDJ-400, you'll need a separate bit of equipment like an audio interface to then go into whatever computer you're streaming with to pick up the microphone. And because the mic actually goes through the software on the Rev1 as well, it means that if you have upgraded to Serato DJ Pro, you can record your mixes and it will pick up the microphone. Whereas on the DDJ-400, because the microphone doesn't go through the Rekordbox software, it won't pick up the microphone when you're recording. So which one of these controllers suits you best as an entry-level DJ? Now, as I said earlier, there is absolutely no restrictions on what music you can play on certain DJ controllers or anything like that. However, This DDJ Rev1 is definitely aimed at the more open format, possibly a DJ that wants to learn how to scratch, hence the layout of the controller being like 2 turntables and a battle mixer, which tends to be the setup that obviously turntablists and DJs who scratch use more than this kind of layout here, like a CDJ and a club mixer. I mean, the thing about layout of DJ controllers is it all comes down to muscle memory. So if you start on this DDJ Rev1 and you're used to the pitch fader being up there and the performance pads being there and stuff, if then you went to DJ on a pair of CDJs and a 900 Nexus 2 mixer, which is what you would find in a club, you might sort of, you know, be going up here for the pitch fader, but actually the pitch fader is down here on the CDJs and stuff like that. But, you know, it only takes a couple of mixes to get used to it, so it's not really the end of the world. But of course, the DDJ Rev1 is a great starting point if you are planning on going down that turntable and battle mixer route. Whereas, as I said at the start, you know, the DDJ-400, I think half the reason why it was so popular is this is literally a shrunk version of what you would find in a DJ booth in a nightclub. I mean, the great thing about this DDJ-400 is exactly that. You learn your way around this entry-level controller here, and then when you go into a club, you know where everything is. Or not even in a club, you know, if you hopped on something larger in the DDJ range like the DDJ-800 or the DDJ-1000 or even the XZ or something like that, everything is in the same place. So I'm not going to tell you that you have to be a scratch DJ for this DDJ Rev1 or you have to be a club DJ for the DDJ-400. That is completely up to you. Let me know in the comments then, guys, which one of these Pioneer DJ controllers would you like to learn on? Or do you have the DDJ-400? What do you think of the DDJ Rev1 and vice versa? Just to say at this point as well, of course, these are entry-level DJ controllers, but they are packed full of features, enough so that an intermediate or a pro DJ would smash a set on either of these controllers, and it's always a great idea to take a backup to gigs, and both of these would pretty much fit in your rucksack. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Please make sure that you subscribe to the DJKit YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit the little bell icon so that you get notified when I release a new video. As I said, drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think about these controllers and share this video to anyone who you think might find it useful. So until next time, peeps, you take care out there. Peace.